Coming to you live from deep within a muddy, radioactive wasteland, we are the survivors of the social justice zombie apocalypse. The few, the brave, the bitchy. Once more wading into battle against the zombie herds with Rantzerker number whatever the fuck this is. 76?
I don't
57.
57.
I believe it's 57.
Then I completely got the wrong fucking number. How far back does this error go?
No idea. But I did notice you said muddy radioactive wasteland. That must mean that Saskatchewan has finally melted.
Yeah, we had some freezing snow rain that actually was also snow about like 2-3 days ago, but that actually dried up. So.
Oh, yuck. We've had, it's been a very mild spring, like warmer than usual, drier than usual, but nice, mild, breezy. The trees are all nice and green. The stupid-ass birds keep trying to pick up the little seeds off the road that have been dropping off the trees in my neighborhood, and I keep running them over and crushing the little fuckers because they're too stupid to get out of my way. Here's what those little birds do, those little sparrows. Right? They see you coming, okay, and they hop out of your way, and then as you get too close to do anything about it, they turn around and fly straight into your path.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of wildlife that's rather stupid. Deers are stupid, too.
Because they're stupid, I get to have this guilt. Like, how many little birds did I fucking crush with my car today?
I get that with snails.
You get that with snails. Okay.
Even though they've barely got a fucking brain in their head, it still feels bad hearing those shells crack.
Oh, God. I once walked across a beach that was completely encrusted with snails, and there was no way to get across from where I was to where I needed to go without just walking across 100 yards of...
No, not teal deer. I'm just saying...
Brown deer are the stupid ones.
Brown deer are really stupid. And they're mostly stupid when they get into this, like, in Victoria, because everybody feeds them there, so they don't have to be smart. And then they just, like, they run all over everything.
No one ever asks them for citations.
What I love is when the deer, you can see them. You're driving along on the highway in the dark, right? And you can see them in the ditch because you can see their eyes, right? And you know they can see you because they're looking right at you because you can see their eyes because their eyes are glowing with the reflection from your headlights. And they wait right until the moment that it's like a completely empty fucking, and then they leap out in front of your fucking vehicle.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Yeah. And then they probably complain to their deer god in deer heaven.
Yeah, they're like, no, but it's like, literally, it's like, is this my cruel world? Like, what the fuck?
The fuck, deer? What the fuck? Brown deer. Brown deer, not teal deer. Brown deer. Like, I guess that's racist.
Yeah, well, like, oh my God, there was one time I was driving back from BC, and I was just hitting Hinton. I was just coming into Hinton. And I saw this absolute fucking travesty of a mess. It must have been a semi-trailer that hit this deer. But it was literally like the deer had jumped out in front of this vehicle, and its entire skeleton had been just ejected out of its body, cartoon style. Right, so you had this big splash of gore, right, initially on the highway, right, fur and skin and blood and meat, right, and all of that, and then the next 100 yards, it was like bones and antlers all over the place. It was like literally the truck had hit it and launched its skeleton like 200 yards further than the rest of it. It was... Fuck, I hate deer.
Yeah, it's like and we're exactly. This is what happens when teal deer isn't on. We start talking behind his back about deer.
Yeah, and birds.
And I guess we could talk about brown bear, but brown bears tend to not be that stupid.
Yeah, they tend to only get hit by cars when they're like quite young, when they're under a year.
Yeah.
The bears that you see, hit by cars on the side of the road are usually under a year old. Or it's like really early in the spring and they still haven't managed to get their eyes uncrusted and all the way open.
That's horrible. Does Bering have young?
I don't know whether Bering has any babies or sugar tits, but
No,
but
that's just horrible.
if they do have children, they should really pay close attention to that.
Yeah, pay attention to the roadways around your den. Don't let your chillins, wander, as it were. Okay, so before we get stuck in, I have made a pact with myself, as I do sometimes, to shill until, well, shill as far as I can. Like, hopefully to get up to the next funding goal, in which case we can give Mike a kickback. Technically, is that a kickback? I don't think it's really a kickback.
It's not a kickback. A
It's a
kickback
kick in some kind of direction.
Oh yeah, I guess so. A kick forward. We'll give Mike a kick forward.
Yeah.
A kick up. How about a kick up?
Okay. All right. So if you're listening now, please tell us. You know the drill. What would make you donate? Why you're not donating currently? Why you're not a supporter? Why? I mean, don't you know this is the best place on the planet? Seriously. So send those answers to topic@badgerpod.com, and here are 2 testimonials to why 2 people actually do support us. And this is from Mark. Hi, Allison. Well, it would be really embarrassing if Mark actually didn't support us, and then this is like what follows is like this really rancid tirade about how awful we are. But I think I've organized these correctly. So, hi, Allison. I have been listening to Honey Badger Radio for a few months now. Having been exploring the manosphere for a little over a year, your radio show, along with the content created by Karen and Christina Hoff Sommers, has demonstrated women can both sympathize with male struggles and point out the wrong think in third wave feminism that is proliferating everything. Your calls to arms at the end of Rantzerker 47 provided the final nail. There's a lot more I could say, but I'll leave it at that for now, so I don't get too personal. I know the only way to combat the mainstream narrative is to use my time and money to further the fight for the truth that you and others have started. Best, Mark. Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate your support. And then this is Jennifer. Hello, I am a recent patron. I signed up but not a moment ago, frankly. What finally pushed me in that direction is that I have been listening to your videos while drawing verbs. That sounds funny, I know, but I'm learning Finnish and I'm trying to remember verbs. Anyway, while I do not have the courage to speak out actively, I can see that you all have the guts to stand up to a system that's unjust in many ways. Not only do I see Honey Badger Radio speaking out against this notion that women are entitled to more rights, but you're helping men find the resources and comfort they need to know they're not alone. Also, I fear the future that lays ahead of us if all too many of us sit passively. I just had to do something, and while the contribution is insignificant, I know it will go to a good use. Thank you very, very much for everything you do and all that you are fighting against. Jennifer. Well, first of all, I wanted to say something to Jennifer. No contribution is insignificant. And if you can't, you can't contribute money, then contribute time. And if you don't want to contribute money to us, then contribute money to one of many other wonderful causes. My favorite,
Find Initiative or Survivors UK.
Yeah.
Or Cafe or NCFM or any number of other. 1 in 3 in Australia is a good one. Any number of other people who are trying to do work on the ground. Victims of immigration fraud, women against paternity fraud. There's just tons and tons and tons of single issues organizations out there as well that don't sort of do this umbrella men's rights.
Well, I wouldn't say we're umbrella. We just have a very, very specific focus, which is to develop the tools and develop the tools to.
But I'm trying to differentiate between groups like Cafe or NCFM, right? There are also other groups, right? That leading women for shared parenting. And it's not just that I want to promote these women's groups like Women Against Paternity Fraud and Leading Women for Shared Parenting, but they seem to be the most have the most public profile, the highest public profile, and there are sort of single issue organizations out there trying to help men in terms of fathers' rights or in terms of helping them with paternity fraud or domestic violence. SAVE is a good one. Stop abusive and violent environments if you want to donate to somebody, right? So essentially, you don't just have groups that sort of want to handle or discuss or deal with the entire shebang of men's issues. You can also choose to, send a little love to a single issue organization that is dealing with a particular issue that disproportionately impacts men, and send your love their way as well. So I mean, it's not like you need to do an all or nothing thing. You can even say, well, I don't want to donate to an organization that promotes this issue. Right? Okay, but so donate to a shared parenting organization, right? If that floats your boat. Like that is really, we'd love to see the love spread around as far and wide as possible. So
yes, but also spread to us, because in many cases a lot of these organizations would have a much lower profile if we weren't able to give them that signal boost.
True.
And mention them and have people listen when we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm on like 3 or 4 different mailing lists that essentially have about 100 people on each of them, and that are actually working inside a lot of these groups. So on boards of directors and stuff like that. And so maybe I see a lot more of what's actually going on and what people are actually doing, people testifying before Congress and stuff like that on this bill, that bill, the other bill. But they are doing a lot of work. They're writing bills, they're proposing legislation, they're lobbying in Washington, D.C., they're lobbying in Ottawa. They're doing all kinds of work that doesn't necessarily make the papers, and certainly doesn't have a huge footprint on YouTube or social media, but they are getting work done, and a lot of it is dealing directly with politicians. So,
which is always fun.
Yeah.
But anyway, so if you there are lots of different causes, different approaches to take to support. In this case, I'm interested in finding out if you do support us, why you support us, and if you don't, why you don't. And you can send those answers to topic@badgerpod.com. Spend a moment to think about that, and send that to me there, and I will look them over and give them due consideration as I gnaw them during my evening lunch dinner thing where you eat, as it were. Okay. Shall we start?
Yes.
Okay, all right, and I'm going to start wittering away of that. Stop wittering away on this issue and start trying to find. There we go. Select self, present to everyone. Go to there. I think this is the right one. Did it just expand?
No. You have to back it up though by 4 seconds.
Okay, just give me a sec. Okay, let me see. Sorry, I just...
You are indeed presenting to everyone.
Okay, here we go.
There. Woo.
Okay, all right.
It's pink.
Yes, it's pink. Okay, let's do this thing. Let's do it.
Totally win-win, Tom. And what's more, based on...
Kevin, I'd like you to run with this from here on.
Mansplaining, when a man explains something to a woman in a patronizing way.
Well, he wasn't actually explaining anything to her. He was just like, okay, you've convinced me one way or the other, right? Either you've convinced me to go with what you're suggesting so you can stop talking now, or you've convinced me that you're incompetent. But either way, I want Kevin to handle this from here on out.
Yeah.
Maybe Kevin's the senior person. Maybe Kevin's the person who is most qualified. Maybe Kevin is the person who is the best for the job, right? But all that putting his hand up and stopping her talking is, I've made a decision, right? So you can stop.
Yeah. Well, one would assume that if it's her boss, that's entirely within his prerogative to do. I mean, it's a little curt, but I don't think that men are any less curt with each other.
No, and I mean, like, I do this with my boyfriend all the time, right? Because he tends to, like, over-explain things, and, and then I'm just like, yeah, okay, I get it. Or with, when he starts wanting to explain things that I have no interest in, like how to write fucking JavaScript. Um, yeah, no, just stop. Just fucking stop.
I don't actually do that, but my husband Jonathan, he has a habit of and I can tell when he's starting this. It's like he's going to tell me something, but he's got to lay the groundwork first and set the scene and just establish all of the key players and some contextual information, excessive amount of contextual information. And I'm like, no, please just get to the verb. What happened? And
Agreed.
yeah,
Yeah. So I mean, this is not just a male thing. This is not a thing that just men do. I do it. You do it. At times, it's just okay. You've convinced me. Where do I sign? Right?
or I'm done. Listen, just get to the verb and let's move on. Like this is, I don't need all of the trappings. I just need to know who and what happened.
Speaking of verbs, the active sort of relative one here is patronizing. So unsurprisingly, it becomes mansplaining if and when a woman feels patronized. But listen, if you say something stupid and someone corrects you, and then you feel stupid because you obviously were corrected after saying something obviously wrong, that's your fault. Sometimes people patronize you because you say stupid things. That's the normal reaction. That's not mansplaining. That's correcting. Sometimes you're wrong, dear.
I still remember. Mansplaining to Danielle Paradis, and who was it? Russ Lindquist called me out on being condescending, dismissive and condescending, or something like that. You sounded so dismissive and condescending, and when I responded to him, I essentially said, I'm sure I sounded dismissive and condescending because I was. Because I was.
Yeah, when you prove someone wrong, you are condescending them. You have to. It's sort of how that dynamic works. If you're right and they're wrong, then it's how this particular analogy works. You're higher than them in this figurative. You know what I mean?
I mean, like you can be nice about it. You can be more polite about it. You can be less of a cunt about it than I was with Danielle Paradis. But and I fully admit I was a complete cunt about it because I think it was deserved, given her level of stupidity in terms of that particular debate. But whatever. Okay, so I could have been nicer.
Me.
No.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Can I finish my sentence?
No, please. Let him go on.
Ooh, mansplaining begins with an interruption.
Yeah, well, okay, here's the thing.
Worse! It gets worse!
I thought that was manterrupting. What's happening? I'm lost.
Mansplaining often begins with an interruption, it says, okay? Now, and it starts with some woman next to Rand Paul. Some woman I don't recognize her, right? Next to Rand Paul. Maybe she's interviewing him. Maybe she's, arguing the counterpoint with him, on a news program or whatever, right? He's the one I recognize, Rand Paul. And I can almost guarantee you, right, when he's going shh to her, right? She's talking and he's going shh, shh. That here's the sequence of events. It went down like when Milo was on that second episode of The Big Questions, yeah, with Kate Smurthwaite.
Yeah, for the roughly 12 seconds that he was on it and allowed to talk.
Yeah, no. So he essentially allowed her 180 seconds of uninterrupted speaking, right? And then he was asked his opinion, and she could not go 10 seconds without interrupting him. And then he might have done something like Rand Paul did and go, shh, shh, it's my turn to speak. This might be the interviewer, this woman, right, who would have asked him, a presidential candidate, about, for the Republican Party, formerly anyway, might have asked him about his opinion or his position on something, and he's in the middle of explaining, and maybe she interrupted his explanation, at which point he's trying to finish his point, and he's like, shh, you know, like, can you please allow me to finish, right? And this happens all the time. Women just don't see themselves doing it, right? They just don't. Except people like me who see how I just kind of interrupted you a little bit, Mike, and I'm really sorry about it.
Oh, that's how it goes down here. If you don't interrupt, you don't speak. I learned that early on.
Pretty much, right? And why? Because we're a bunch of women here for the most part, at least the regulars are mostly women. And so if you aren't willing to interrupt, you're never going to get a chance to talk, right? So even if it's your turn. So at least with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, mister, shut up. Quiet. Calm down a bit here, Kelly.
In acts of mansplaining, a
Calm
man.
down. Calm down a bit. He literally told her to calm down a bit.
He knows more about a topic than a woman. Wait a second. That was all. That
was practical.
That wasn't even mansplaining. They weren't explaining anything. They were trying to talk.
Well, and him telling her to calm down a bit, that was practically raping her.
Yes.
Oh,
So
yeah.
let's find out what else is practically rape in this extremely important public service announcement about mansplaining. Dun dun dun.
I'm a guy, and I know why these guys do this. The bottom line is this, ladies.
When we're talking about the
I'm a guy and I know.
Oh my god, he literally said, I'm a guy and I understand why guys would do something.
Like, he just assumed he'd know more than a woman about what it's like to be a man. He just assumed it.
Oh my
I can't believe he would do that.
God, that's humanity! I mean, seriously, how dare men consider themselves to be experts on being men? How dare they think that they understand how to be a man more than a woman?
Educate yourself. Standpoint theory.
Educate yourself, men! You can't possibly know what it is to be a man more than a woman does! How dare you! This isn't a situation where women are presuming a priori knowledge over something that they could not fucking have any fucking knowledge of. No. These men are in the wrong. Women understand men's thoughts implicitly because they're telepathic or some shit.
Yeah, no, and when a man says, this isn't actually what I was thinking or intending, or this isn't actually how I feel about this, well, you know he's wrong.
Mansplaining! Mansplaining! Every
And
time
how dare he actually say that? How dare he contradict her imputations of motivation and intent that she's just, like, foisted on him? She just, like, piled all of this, you know, assumption on him, you know, because she's clairvoyant or some shit, right? And he's saying, actually, no, that's not really the way I feel. And then she's like, how dare you mansplain your experience as a man to me?
So this is basically, mansplaining is basically women pissing over men's own brains and saying, yeah, that's my territory.
Pretty much.
When a man explains something to a woman and he's wrong, that's called a man being wrong. Well, it's called patriarchy. If a man explains something to a woman and he's right, it's called mansplaining. Different tantrums for different occasions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But all the same, it all ends up in the same location. Men are wrong.
And you know, whatever the case, it's not about the nail.
Okay.
We'll watch that when we're done with this.
What?
We'll watch that video. It's not about the nail when we're done with this. And it will explain so much to everyone.
All right. How long is that video? Because, you know.
It's like a minute and a half or something.
And we're watching it on the Rantzerker?
We're going to watch it on the Rantzerker at the tail end of this 1 minute and 17-second video. Because it dovetails so beautifully with this video. So,
you know what, Karen? I think you're Karen-splaining right now.
You're just going to have to wait and see.
Yeah.
diversity, you do it in the casting of the film, not in the casting of the show. Ooh.
Others say that mansplaining is being used to silence men. Yeah? Okay. No. They don't say that. They're making an observation about reality. You are using mansplaining to silence men. You're even using mansplaining to silence men when men are talking about themselves. Oh, I didn't actually have that thought. Well, shut up, you're mansplaining! You're just as bad as I think you are, because I can see inside your fucking head, and I know. I can infer from this random sequence of, this jumbled sequence of actions and things that you've said, I can infer what you actually think.
And it's not called man lying. It's not called man failing. It's not called man getting it wrong. Apparently that's not an epidemic problem. It's when men explain something to you and they're right about it. That's what needs to be clamped down.
He's so fucking arrogant.
You know, like I can get it. I can get the whole, you know, there are people who feel like they need to educate you, right? Like you're just so fucking dumb, right? That you couldn't possibly understand this lofty, abstract idea without them explaining it to you, right? And the whole term mansplaining was coined. It was actually a really sort of amusing situation that should really have not amounted to anything other than a woman being able to really zing a guy, right? And embarrass him, right? But the whole term was coined. It was a woman. She had written some book on fucking politics or neuroscience or some shit, right? And she was at a party, and there was a guy there who was telling her about this awesome book he'd just read on, you know, on this subject, which happened to be her book, right? And was mansplaining to her what it was covering in a very condescending way. Well, okay, but he just met you at a party. He doesn't know anything about you. He doesn't know that you're an expert in this field, right? He thinks you're just some regular fucking person, and he's excited about the ideas in your book. And he's trying to explain them as he would to a layperson, which he assumes that you are, because he has no idea you're the author of this book, right? And she went, he only did that because I'm a woman, right? He only talked to me like a layperson and not an expert because I'm a woman.
Okay, all right. Lady, what is the likelihood that you are going to, considering how fractured expertise is becoming, what is the likelihood you're going to find someone who is an expert in something at a party? It's incredible that
just
he found
randomly.
Just randomly.
And know that you're an expert. Assume that you're an expert.
Yeah, or assume that you're the author. Anyway.
Mansplaining is used in other more nefarious ways, frankly, to silence people, to basically...
Right.
Ooh, I like this woman. She's intelligent. What the fuck do you need? Why do you need a specific word for interrupting based on gender? Or explaining something based on gender?
Or being condescending based on
gender.
Yeah.
Why do you need that? Why are you introducing all of these fucking words into the English language, feminists, that essentially tie the male gender or sex with something bad? And not even that, they just tie it with something neutral, and by tying it to men, it makes it bad. That is fucked the fuck up!
Well, it doesn't make it bad, it makes it worse, right? Because it's always bad.
But think about it, this is mansplaining, so it's man plus explaining. Explaining is neutral, usually, often positive. But once they introduce the word man to it, it suddenly becomes evil! And part of some sort of system of oppression. You people are fucking sick! How is it that they have such an enormous platform? It's like we're in the goddamn asylum. Like that guy with his house on the inside. Everywhere else is the asylum. An insane asylum.
It's yeah.
That a man doesn't have a right to talk about certain things.
Studies show that men dominate 75% of conversations in decision-making groups. And what about outside of decision-making groups?
Well, what bothers me with this too is that decision-making groups are are often dominated by men in terms of the number of people. So if 75% of the people in decision-making groups are men, then 75% of the conversation would probably be, men talking.
I would have
And
to.
who benefits from the decisions? That's what we should look into. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, who benefits from the decisions? And I want to see the studies. Because I know, I've actually seen studies like this, similar, that men actually dominate in structured groups, and that women dominate in unstructured groups.
Yeah. Well, and decision-making groups have to be structured. I mean, especially like in terms of corporate structures and stuff like that. I mean, like this is one of the things that drives me crazy about the way women form coalitions, the way they cooperate, and all of this, right? Sort of unstructured. I even saw it in terms of when I was looking for publishers back when I was writing dirty books, and I was trying to find publishers that like looking through all of the details of all of these publishers to see who I should submit my work to, and I would see often, right, from these sort of young female authors or naive female authors, and it just feels like such a family, the whole publisher, it's just like a family. It's like, yeah, no, if you're going to structure your business as if it's a family, right, and as if people within it aren't expendable, right, and as if there's really no hierarchy, and there's no formal, there are very good things about, sort of everybody sitting at the lunchroom together and interacting, but there has to be and there are things to be said about fluid hierarchies, but there has to be a hierarchy when you have an organization that is, say, more than 100 people, because not everybody cares about everybody else. Like I can only care as much about, I can't care as much about that guy in the next cubicle as I do about my own children, as I do about my boyfriend, as I do about my parents, right? And so you need these actual structures in order to maintain cohesion, maintain cooperation, direct human interaction in a way that is formal and formalized and more and positive, right? You can't have a corporation with 20,000 employees that operates like a fucking family, where every single member is like, oh, it's like my cousin or my child, right? Yeah, no.
Well, it's that when you do that, you end up having a business that thinks it owns your emotions, which is fucked up.
Well, not just that. You have a business that thinks that it's okay to not pay you this week because you should really just be able to understand that things are difficult, and
Okay. Oh, I wanted to mention something. This is an anecdote from my own life. I used to be part of a Canada-wide, or I used to be a delegate in a Canada-wide sort of students' union, which is the most stupid, fucking fucked up. Anyway, when I went to the annual meeting, I was the only woman who ever got up and spoke. One of two, and she only spoke once. I spoke at almost every motion. And all of the other women, and the funny thing is that this student union had a rule in which if a woman stepped up, and she had her own line. So men had a line and women had a line.
Yeah, she was given priority.
She was given priority. So any woman who spoke up would have been given instant priority. In fact, considering that fact, those delegations who wanted to get their opinion heard should have sent female delegates, so that they would get heard first before the motion was debated or decided upon or voted on. But they never did. These women never fucking got up out their fat fucking asses and walked up and talked. Because that risk was too much for their goddamn cow brains.
Well, okay? When you have someone like Megyn Kelly going, you called women fat asses with cow brains, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to look her right in the eye, and I want you to say, only Rosie O'Donnell.
Oh, Jesus, a Trump reference. We're going to be so skewered. I personally am completely apolitical, although I do find that amusing.
No, I am too, but you can't help but acknowledge that he gets away with saying shit, right? And then he comes back with only Rosie O'Donnell, and it's like, where do you go from there?
No, I'm tired of actually allowing women to slump into this lower level of engagement with things, allowing them to slump into this piss-stained cowardice, because that's what it was. Not only were those women not talking for themselves, they weren't talking for their delegations either, in a situation where they would have given their delegations a considerable advantage in getting their opinions expressed, and they still sat on their coward asses and did nothing. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. We need to hold women to higher standards of behavior and courage. You don't sit on your ass. And then you don't sit on your ass and complain after the fact that 75% of conversations don't include you.
Yeah.
And when women are talking, they are more likely to be interrupted. I really doubt that.
I would have to see the data on that. You know, after watching that episode of The Big Questions, I would really fucking have to see the data on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just talk and I'll correct you whenever I feel the need.
You know why that was funny? You know why the audience found that funny? It's because it's the kind of thing that doesn't normally happen. It's because it's so naughty for a man to say that to a woman. If it wasn't so naughty, it wouldn't be funny. I'm not getting through, am I?
It's through the looking glass, friend. It's through the looking glass. As a result, women often find themselves victims. They often find themselves, what?
Silenced, I bet.
Silenced? Oh, well, silenced is another word for victims. What a surprise. I know where this is leading. But I could be wrong. Talked over, cut off, forced to listen. But many women have had it calling out mansplainers. But, you know, in that fucking Canada-wide student union where women had the option to have their own fucking line and get their first right to get up and speak, they didn't. I did. Nobody interrupted me. Nobody spoke over me. I got to speak only because I actually got off my ass, which is also fat, and I went up there and I spoke.
I have to say, Allison, your ass is not particularly fat.
Well, that's fat.
But no, it's the same thing. It's the same thing with you know, like I've actually had I had one woman, and she's a highly conservative woman, and she reached out to me, I don't know, maybe about a year ago. She was interested in starting her YouTube channel dealing with men's issues and anti-feminism and stuff, and she's since come out with some videos, and she's gained some popularity, and I'm very, very happy for her, even though I don't agree with, you know, everything she says, but it seemed like she really needed somebody to just tell her to just fucking do it. Just do it. Like, nobody's going to be mad at you. Nobody's going to be able to, like, you know, stop you, right? Just take the initiative. Just fucking do it. And, you know, I think that this is really the, like, you see this all the time too in discussions of like what happens when women enter these sort of highly formalized hierarchical structures that are necessary in these huge human systems like corporations or governments, right? Where they don't feel, it feels uninviting. They don't feel welcome, right? They don't feel, you know, valued and all. Like, nobody does, okay? Nobody does. Right? This is not about you and how the system is treating you like an impersonal, you know, cog in the machine. No, it treats everybody like that. That's the only way it can treat anybody, right? And what they seem to think is that they can come into these huge, massive systems that are completely reliant on this sort of impersonal way of organizing themselves because, you know, like, that person on, on this floor of the building has no fucking clue who this person on that floor of the building is, nor does he care, right? Everybody just has to be their own cog and fill their spot in the machinery of the
do their work,
right? And nobody has time to fucking make you feel welcome or make you feel invited in, and so you have to actually deal with that and push yourself forward when you feel like you have something to say. You can't wait to be invited to speak.
They seem to think that the racetrack is gonna kiss their ass and just pop up one of those those things in airports where you step on and they zip you to another location. Those moving sidewalks. That's what they think a racetrack should be. He kisses their ass, and then they go on this moving sidewalk, and they don't have to actually take any risks or make any effort. And but they'll call out mansplainers. This is what's so fucking annoying. I've seen so many women who will spend more effort bitching than they will actually doing or working. And they won't do anything until that they can throw their goddamn moral weight around. And if you think that I'm singling women out for this particular criticism, you are correct. Because as far as I know, men don't have any kind of large-scale video talking about femsplaining and complaining about women telling them what they think, even though that happens all the time. Feminism is basically a worldwide explanation about how men think that doesn't bear out in reality.
I'm just giving you.
I love the mansplaining. I'm enjoying it.
Fire her. Oh, Senate Community Affairs Legislation Committee.
Are they encouraging more women to do this? Because she got chewed out for doing that.
Oh yeah, no, she did. Well, she got chewed out by him because he had the balls.
And she looked like a dick for doing it.
Yeah.
And they don't show the following bit where she gets like fucking dicked out for it. They just show this bit of it as if to say to their audience, look, other people should engage in calling out mansplaining because you won't look like a complete tit for doing it. Promise.
He pulled a Trump on her like so hard, right? Called her a sexist, right? Called her out on it. And was very, very firm. He was just like, yeah, no, so you're a woman. I'm not putting up with this shit from you, right? I'm not going to treat you more gentle than I would a man. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
How dare she look at with that kind of expression on a coworker and somebody who is also trying to work for the betterment of their country? Like, what kind of fucking smug, contemptuous, holier than thou? My piss rains down upon you because you are beneath me. Fucked up expression is that?
Well, and you're gonna call it like, I don't know, ambrosia, right? Because that's what my pee is. It's ambrosia, and it rains down on all.
Who made you the boss of him? You smug, sanctimonious, self-appointed royalty, self-uranointed royalty.
The mansplaining that's going on. Mr. Speaker, I'd rather.
Unbelievable. No respect for your coworkers.
No.
This is just an invitation to disrespect everyone around you. Well, if they're male.
The mansplaining on the.
I can't fucking believe this. Who the fuck votes these women into power?
Well, this is a different woman. This is the crazy thing. This is a different woman that than the mansplaining I'm getting. It's a different fucking woman in a different freaking situation. And yeah, no, she's using it too, and it's just like, yeah, what? How mature are we? How mature are we that we are in a governmental fucking committee or whatever? We're in an appropriations committee or what have you, and we're throwing around terms like mansplaining, man-interrupting, Like, what?
Like,
This actually reminds me. This reminds me of this one fucking female politician. She's been in politics in the U.S. for quite some time, right? And she was talking about how when she went in as a junior staff member or something to her boss, who was like the governor or some shit, right? She wanted a favor, right, from him. She wanted him to do something specifically for her, sponsor a bill or whatever. Like she wanted him to stick his neck out for something that she wanted in particular, right? And he said, "I hope you brought your knee pads."
Actually,
and that was according to her, totally sexist. Okay.
Well, no, but Karen, it's actually worse than that. It's actually worse than that. No, wait. It's worse than that. He wasn't actually saying it of himself. He was saying I think it was some sort of bipartisan thing she wanted passed.
Yeah. Well,
so
but
he was saying she was going to have to do some strenuous deep throating to get anybody to agree with it.
Yeah, but I mean, like, what on earth makes her think that he would not have said that to a man in her position, right? I mean, like, this is the kind of commentary that goes on all the time between, you know, my boyfriend and his bosses and his male co-workers and stuff. They're always talking about, you know, oh yeah, Chris is great, you know, he sucks a little too much dick, you know, in the head office, but, you know, yeah, that's how they talk, right? So maybe he was just treating her the way he would treat any male staffer.
Of course, that is what's the difference between saying that and mansplaining? Well, the contempt would be the difference. Mansplaining creates a hierarchy with this woman on top. And I don't think if she was in my government, she is a cog to serve me. She doesn't have the authority to create hierarchies other than the one created by the voters. So you shut the fuck up. Does anybody follow what I'm saying?
Yes, she has no right to put herself in kind of a morally and socially superior position to all of the other elected officials that she's working with.
They were elected by us.
Yeah.
To be in those positions. You occupy the position, the exact hierarchical position that you were given by the electorate, and if you assume to any greater hierarchical position, lady, you should be thrown out for treason. I'm going a little bit hyperbolic.
You're going a little hyperbolic, but I mean, like, this is really the conundrum that seems to be, you know, sort of the major pitfall of feminism and modern society is that women used to have, women used to have social and sexual power over men. Men used to have political and economic power over women, or above that of women, and we gave women economic and political power. There is no way to balance the social and sexual power between men and women, given what our instincts are like. And so, you know, there's no way that we could ever sort of position men as you know, sort of the morally superior ones, the ones upon, you know, we're never going to judge a society by the yardstick of how well it treats its men, you know, compared to women.
Well, I agree very fundamentally with that, but go on.
But this is the issue, is that we have to, if we're going to actually have an equitable society, we have to
start talking about how it's inequitable.
We have to equalize all the different forms of power, right? And economic and political power are very easily measured. You hold office, you got voted into office, you have legal rights, you know, economic power, you have money, right? All of those things, right? The social and the sexual power that women have over men is much harder to measure, it's much harder to quantify, it's much harder to convince people that that exists. In fact, feminists have been using their political and economic power that women have gained over the last 150 years in order to convince society that women are actually disadvantaged socially and sexually as well, right, compared to men, as opposed to the reality, which is that they have always had the advantage there, right? So what we're seeing is this massive unbalancing of power, in all spheres, right? Because women can use their social and sexual power to gain economic and political power, and they can use their political and economic power to convince everybody that they don't have sexual or social power. And so they essentially are powerless, even though they're controlling the whole fucking dance.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I think there are elements that in order to do this, women are basically contorting themselves into a role that may actually be more restrictive and miserable than ever in human history.
Oh, miserable for sure, right? That's why they're less happy than they ever have been.
But but I would agree that it is difficult, although I'd say the first step is to identify that it exists. I wouldn't say never, because human beings never doesn't really apply to human beings as far as I'm concerned. But let's finish this shit. No, we're not sharing this video. Karen, quickly, where's this other video that you're talking about?
Oh, I got the link in the sidebar here. If you think women should be respected when they're talking, I'm gonna share this video with Cenk. I will share it the one time. I will send it to Cenk Uygur and get him to respect me when I'm talking. Yada, yada, Karen, yada, yada, yada. This is the epitome of what this entire phenomenon is really about. So let's have a look. It's a brilliant, brilliant little video.
Okay. Oh wait, sorry guys.
Sure, you know?
Let's restart that.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me. And I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head. And it's relentless. And
okay, I'm not sure if the copyright problems start at 15 seconds now, or if it's just
okay. So let's just pause it every 15 seconds to people.
Well, we have to make a comment. I know that they're hiding something. I can tell it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
You do have a nail.
just wait. It gets better. Gets better.
All right.
In your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this.
You always do this. look at his face. You just can't even. Okay.
All I need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See,
out.
you're not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's...
Sometimes it's like I have a nail in my head.
No,
it's just so troublesome to me, and yet
I just want to talk about my feelings.
And that's, well, you know, if you look at this from a situation where it really is women's reactions that govern society, the fact that she wants to stay in a position where she's having her reaction listened to, there is some compulsion to that. It's absurd compulsion, but
no, but it's exactly sort of, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just trying to put two and two together. What it's for? Well, no, you say it's for, but it's about the process of combining the two twos. You're not listening.
This achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
All my sweaters are snagged.
It sounds, okay, I gotta pause it for a few seconds and also give it a little time with two different voices so someone speak up. It sounds like you have a nail in your head.
She's like, and all my sweaters are snagged.
Yeah.
Really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. If you would just...
Don't.
Try to sleep me.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm not going to go any further because I don't want to...
Yeah, no, that's all there is. That's all there is. They
Just,
go to kiss. His head bumps the nail. She's like, ow, and he's like, oh, come on, and she's like, don't even try. You just always try to solve my problems, and you never just listen.
yeah. Well, okay, but that's a sort of a cute version of this. I think the mansplaining is when this becomes totally virulent.
Well, I mean, but she's essentially spending the entire time accusing him of mansplaining and not listening to her lived experience, right? And he's just like, what the fuck? You have a nail in your head. Let's get that thing out of there.
Oh, man.
Your sweaters won't be snagged anymore. What the hell?
Yeah,
Snagged, like all of them.
but then she wouldn't be experiencing anything, which is what I was trying to get at, you know? If you define yourself entirely by how you're acted upon and how you experience things, when you cease to experience something and someone isn't acknowledging your experiences, do you cease to be?
I don't know, but I mean, like, this is like it's one of the funniest fucking videos that I have ever seen about how men and women are a little bit different in their approach to things, and yeah, just the absurdity of her having like essentially a railroad spike embedded in her forehead. It's beautiful. It's, and she doesn't want to talk about the nail because it's not about the nail.
And it's well understood that this is how the dynamic works when it's a boyfriend and a girlfriend sat on a sofa talking about relatively unimportant shit. There's a general tendency that men approach problems by starting with how they would be fixed, and women on average approach problems by the other end of the thing, how you would start the solution or whatever. And it makes sense in that context, but when you bring it to the context of a parliamentary discussion, that's how it translates. It translates into a man tries to fix a problem, and then the woman realizes she's not trying to fix the problem at all. So she has a tantrum and says, "Yes, it's mansplaining. You're just trying to fix things." Well, yes, we're government officials, darling. We're supposed to fix things. This is definitely our job.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so does anybody have any final... Or no, I don't want to say the word final. Final is so final. But let's
I don't have any final thoughts about today's topic, today's Rantzerker. I did want to give a shout out to Kevin Logan. Some of the things that because he released 2 videos targeting me, a week or 2 ago, and some of the commenters.
Just to be a pedant, it was 1 video, but it had to get separated into 2 because he's got a copyright strike, I think.
Okay, well,
I don't want to fall into a pedantry trap or anything, Kev.
Okay, whatever. It's fine, right? But and I wasn't even interested in watching them. I didn't even watch them, but I went and I looked through the comments on one of them, and I found a bunch of people accusing me of essentially being cruel to my dog, and saying, "Oh, you can, yeah, of course, she's awful. You can tell a lot about people by the way they treat their animals and stuff like that," and it really upset me. And I left a couple of big, long comments sort of demonstrating how I feel about my dog.
Wait a second. I just wanted to get in here.
And
she treats her dog like she treats me the same way.
But okay. I left a couple of comments demonstrating the lengths that I will go to for my animals. He was initially really annoyed that I was sort of holding him responsible for these commenters and the the message that they were taking away, and I was just like, well, you might want to just at least go. I would really appreciate it if you would at least just go and disabuse them of this notion that, because he wasn't actually trying to portray me as being abusive to my dog, but that was something that some of his viewers were sort of taking he was sort of actually kind of like, oh yeah, I totally know it. The number of times I've yelled, "I will murder you, cat," when I'm recording and she does stupid shit, right? So it would have actually made me chuckle if not for these comments of people who were taking this message that I'm abusive to my animals. Anyhow, it really upset me. I don't know why. I guess it's because, the whole thing with animals and, the kicking the dog trope and all of that stuff, right? And so I suggested that maybe he could do something to disabuse his viewers of the notion that I'm abusive to my animals. And he actually uploaded a brief video saying that's not what I was intending to say at all. Anybody who's got the impression that, Karen abuses her pets, is getting the wrong message out of what I was saying and what I was joking about and everything. So I just wanted to thank him again in one more place for actually going out of his way to do that. Because it wasn't really his fault that people were taking away that message, but some people were, and he went out of his way to correct it, and I really appreciate that. So
yeah, thank you, Kevin. It is good to do that. At least keep the argument within the bounds of a certain amount of respect.
Well, and just, like he was really kind about it too. Like I think he really understood where I was coming from, and sort of he did it out of compassion, and not just out of respect or keeping things civil, but just like out of a genuine compassionate instinct. And so I just wanted to just make sure that
I actually
know that he's not all bad, and he can actually be a pretty decent chap.
Okay, well, I just wanted to say something to that whole idea that compassion is somehow separate from respect and logic and civility. I don't think it is. In fact, I think logic is a recognition that you are not going to use emotional weaponry on your opponent, on your debate partner, and that is born out of compassion. So I think a logical debate is an element of compassion, because you say that let's set aside our big guns and our emotional weaponry, and let's just deal with this. Let's just dig into this issue from a logical perspective. And that logical perspective respects both sides, because that's logic. It doesn't matter who's giving the logical argument. What matters is the validity of the logical argument.
See,
it's the ultimate equalizer.
I don't even have a logical reason why that was the one thing that really bothered me. I mean, like, people in the comments are calling me a rape apologist and a domestic violence apologist and all of this other stuff. And then there were a few people who were like, oh, yeah, she abuses her animals too. And it was like, that was what did it. That was what upset me. And I actually was really, really upset over that. I don't tend to get upset like that over very much, but it just kind of hit me in a sore spot, given my dog's recent travails with onion poisoning and all of that. And so, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are spots that are very sore. Like, imagine your kids and your dog are probably, maybe not your kids, I don't know.
Well, my kids, at least, they're old enough. They're not totally dependent on me. But your animals, you sort of look at it and it's like they're completely they're sort of like newborn babies, right? Like they're completely dependent on you, and they're just like, I don't know how to feed myself.
Well, yeah, and people are really, really touchy, because I got a couple claims of animal abuse on that video that I have where Jonathan's lifting Mia up and she's swatting at a fly in the ceiling.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, some people were like, oh my god, animal abuse. I'm like,
what?
Even though you can see that he's basically going where she's going. Like, she's sort of directing him of how to take, which way to go with the fly.
Yeah.
And he's just like holding her up. No, it's animal abuse because, I don't know, she's unsupported even though, he had both hands on her.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's essentially like, okay, so when I yell at my dog, she's still wagging, her ears are still up, her eyes are still bright, she's still meeting my eye, all of those things, right? And like she knows that I'm not genuinely mad at her, right? Like, she knows that. Just like when I tell my 13-year-old, I will rip your arm off and beat you with it. She knows.
If you spend 5 minutes in Karen's presence, you'll be threatened to be murdered. It's fine.
And my boyfriend, like, we go to sleep at night, we're cuddling, and I'm like, this is probably the night when I'm going to put a pillow over your face. Just FYI. right? And he's like, oh, why would you do that to, to such a great guy? And I'm like, you're not that great. And there's all that insurance money, and then he's like, oh, you're such a bitch. And then, we smooch, and then things progress from there, right? That's how we talk to each other, right?
Yes, there you go, folks. Death threats or foreplay for Karen.
Pretty much, like not real death threats. When I'm actually mad at him, boy, there's just no way he's getting near me. But
yeah, well, yeah, I think that's a case for many situations of being mad at someone. And speaking of being mad at someone, all right, so I began this by talking about 2 testimonials by why 2 people did donate. And I wanted to say to Jennifer, because she was saying that she felt like a coward and that her donation wasn't really that important. First of all, any bit counts. Just $5 a month. That's $5 a month we wouldn't otherwise have, so don't sneeze at it. So, Jennifer, whatever you did actually offer, it's not insignificant. And the other thing is that I recognize that it's not insignificant because it is an act of courage to actually invest yourself in something. Especially something that seems so difficult and so impossible. And so don't ever, Jennifer, don't ever think that you're a coward. Because just the act of saying, hey, these people are trying to do something, I don't even know if it'll happen. I don't even know, that's a risk. And you took that risk. You took the risk of investing in something without knowing if it'll pan out. And but I talked about 2 people who said why they donated, and I'm going to go back to another person, one of my favorite naysayers, Aaron, and I've probably brought him up multiple times because I actually really like his email. It's full of interesting stuff. So don't think that if you send me an email and it's negative that I'm going to be like, oh my God, I hate you. Oh, I will. I will. I will want to kill you for about 5 minutes, but then I'll be like, oh yeah, that's interesting. But anyway, Aaron writes, you asked for my reasons, so I'll give them. You may not like them. You might think that I'm wrong, but I'm being honest. I don't donate to Honey Badger Radio because you don't do enough in the real world to help men and boys. That's it, really. I'd rather give my money to something other than the propaganda fight. I found the manosphere through Karen, and I know you do help men and boys. I appreciate the importance of propaganda, but at the end of the day, you can't change public opinion on these questions. You can't make men have in-group bias or make women have out-group bias. So for that reason, while I enjoy listening to you guys vent your frustrations, I conclude that Honey Badger Radio will never be much more than a sympathetic echo chamber. And again, thank you, Aaron, for writing in. I may refer to your particular letter multiple times because it was a good one. And I want to say that I actually appreciate your criticisms quite a bit. And one of the reasons why I appreciate it is because there are people who are not Aaron who also criticize us because they think we're ineffectual. I like what Aaron's saying better because he gets what we're doing is nearly impossible, or is impossible. Other people think we're just ineffectual, and they say that because they don't have a clue about scale. They look at the size of the audience of bigger YouTubers and say, those people are really going to get something done. But here's the thing. The scale of the change that we're proposing is big. If we look throughout history at the various revolutions, the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, we could say those changes were big. If they were mountain, those revolutions would be like, let's say, Mount Everest, and like climbing Mount Everest. But what we're proposing, society feeling compassion for men, is more like the change from grunts and squeaks to spoken words, or from spoken words to written language. That's what we are proposing is essentially an evolution, not a revolution. If the industrial and agricultural revolutions are Mount Everest, or climbing Mount Everest, then what we're proposing is like climbing Olympus Mons on Mars, the tallest mountain in the solar system. Like Aaron said, it's probably impossible to change social attitudes regarding compassion towards men. Complaining about being in Olympus Mons' shadow is much easier, which is, frankly, being in Olympus Mons' shadow is all of the bullshit that we see with social justice warriors, because this asymmetrical care for women is exactly the weapon that they use to bully artists and creators and producers. And that's what they're doing. It's much easier to gather around in a group and sit in the shadow and complain about it. And don't get me wrong, complaining about the shadow is where it starts. But don't look at that huge crowd. Don't say, look at that huge crowd of people complaining about the shadow. Look at how many there are of you, and look at how few you are. Look at how big that crowd is complaining about the shadow. And look at how few those that are in the honey badger camp, building our rocket, packing our bags, planning our route, ready to climb up that impossible mountain. You're such a small party, and that makes you ineffectual at complaining about the shadow. Well, yeah, it does make us ineffectual about complaining about the shadow, because that's not what we're doing. Now, is it impossible to climb Mount Olympus on Mars? Probably. Are we a bunch of fucking lunatics? Probably. I agree with Aaron that what we're doing is impossible. Fair enough. But I disagree that we're a sympathetic echo chamber. We're a fucking boot camp for lunatics. Yeah, we're smaller because we're different. Everyone listening to Honey Badger Radio and everyone contributing to it is different. Before you can climb the mountain, you have to learn how. You have to have a map, a plan, and that's what we're doing. We're a boot camp for lunatics. That's why I don't like referring to our listeners as fans. You guys aren't fans. You're listening colleagues, because even listening to Honey Badger Radio is a boot camp. Just our listeners have 5 pounds of grit in their guts. Just our listeners, much less our contributors giving their time or financial support and throwing their hope down the well of this crazy, lunatic, impossible idea. You guys who do that, you've got 5 pounds of grit and a whole metric fuck ton of crazy. We're done with complaining about the shadow, and we're now getting ready to climb the mountain, casting it. So say it's impossible you want, but don't say we're ineffectual. Because the only people who are ever going to climb that mountain are the people who are actually climbing that fucking mountain. And even if we die trying, we will die halfway up the fucking flank and not pissing around in its shadow. So if you want to be crazy with us, if you want to be just as crazy as us, www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio.